houses.
Yes, exactly. So I watched them all freak out
Today, the people with hundreds of millions of dollars are worried about losing their homes. That's a special day in America.
exactly.
That was actually when I was working in the bank. I graduated from college in 2007, so my first job in finance, giving out mortgages, was when they were all blowing up.
Oh,
So
nice.
it was an interesting time to be in the world of banking.
Yeah, I definitely would say so.
Yeah, my first post was October 2008. So right in the heart of the financial crisis and people trying to put their life back together, their financial pieces back in order.
Yeah. So with that then, and your first post happening right in the heart of the financial crisis, how has your blog evolved in these last 9 years?
Sure. So it started out answering really basic financial questions, things that anybody could use a little bit of extra help in, especially people who didn't have that background in finance, which I was lucky enough to have at that point. But over time, the blog became more complex on how it dealt with different financial issues. It often followed a lot about what I was doing in my life. So when I was starting out, I was renting an apartment. I was debt free, but I was using credit cards for the first time in my life with an actual income. It wasn't just like, here's my parents' emergency card I can use if I'm, with my sister somewhere and we need to eat. But like an actual credit card I had to pay for and was responsible for. Mm-hmm. I had to deal with my own checking and savings and 401k and picking insurance at work. Like who at 22 years old when they get their first job after school is like, oh, yeah, I know exactly what life insurance I need from my job. Like no one knows any of that. So that was where I was starting in the beginning. I was answering the questions that I was dealing with. And then the questions I was dealing with changed. It became, went from how do you afford to date women in a big city as a single guy, because dating can be expensive and you're expected, whether it's right or wrong, a lot of women expect to be treated on a first date or a second date or however many dates. So I wrote about dating and money. Then I had a girlfriend. I wrote about girlfriends and money, and then I had another girlfriend and another girlfriend. So I wrote about that a few times. And then I got moved in with someone and we got married, and so we started writing about how to merge finances. I bought a condo when I was in Denver and then a house in Portland. So wrote about mortgages and buying homes and dealing with HOAs. And now lately, over the last couple of years, it's shifted to more focus on side income, entrepreneurship, side hustles, ways that you can increase your income. Because one of the ways I look at personal finance, I actually look at it a lot like budgeting. There's dieting, budgeting. I look at budgeting like dieting. So you really, when you're dieting, you have an input and an output, right? Your input is what you eat. Your output is the calories you burn, which is either through exercise or, that small baseline that we burn off when we're sleeping or watching Netflix. So, but, you could be on the treadmill, 18 hours a day. And if all you eat is pizza and ice cream, you're still going to keep gaining weight because your input is bigger than your output. So with finance, it's the opposite. Your input is those dollars coming in from work or wherever else, and the output is your expenses and your spending. You can, like you say, you could be on the treadmill 18 hours a day and you're never going to lose weight if your inputs aren't taken care of. Same thing happens with finance. You can budget and budget and budget and get frugal until you're blue in the face and, pull change out of vending machines, and I've seen all sorts of funny things people do to save money. Make your own shampoo and deodorant. I would never do that. I'm like yucky. But I live at a humid climate. Maybe you could get away with that in like Arizona or something. I don't know. But I don't care about spending $2 or $4. The latte factor was a big thing from David Bach's book, The Automatic Millionaire, which was actually one of the books that really got me into personal finance. It was the last book I read before I started my blog. Kind of a fun little story.
Oh, sure.
But the latte factor that he talks about, which says, if you go spend $3 on coffee every day for 50 weeks a year and add that up over time with interest, it becomes hundreds of thousands of dollars. Who cares about $3 really? If you could go do something that you'll make $100 or $500, which is my current goal every single day of the week. So, it's not about how much you spend. If you can make enough money, you can as my friend Paula Pant, her site's affordanything.com, she says it best. She says, you can't afford everything, but you can afford anything. And I really like that idea, because you can afford anything if you set your mind to it and create a goal. You just have to make small changes and adjustments in your life, and you can make it happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm curious, because you just mentioned this. You said that you have a goal of, is it $500 a day?
Yeah, I did a little math. I said, well, I want to make $10,000 a month. That feels like a cool number to say I make every month. Mm-hmm. And so it's $120,000 a year. I used a calculator, figured out if I make $500 on average every weekday all year, I'll make over $120,000 a year.
Mm-hmm. Oh, cool. So with the evolution of your site and your blog and podcast, with that, are you making the majority of your income through consulting through there? Is it sponsorships that you've come across? Or and if you don't mind telling a little bit about that, but how do your finances work with those items particularly?
Yeah, so my biggest income source by far is freelance writing. And that, again, if you go over those income reports, you'll see over time it kind of ebbs and flows. When I quit my job, actually about 25% of my income at that point, right after I quit, was coming from web design and web development, which I figured out I make a lot less per hour and is way more frustrating than writing. So I stopped doing it. I well, I'm just going to focus on writing and grow it till I hit a point I don't need the web design stuff anymore. And so that's what I did over the last 6 months to a year. Okay. But right now, I would say probably 90% of my income comes from freelance writing, and that fluctuates a little bit. Unlike with a regular day job where you're getting that check every 2 weeks or whatever your schedule is, the amount I make goes up and down every month, so it's a lot less predictable. But overall, it's still more than I made in my day job plus my side hustle combined before I quit my job. So overall, it's been better. I pay more for health insurance now by quite a bit. There's some other costs that come with entrepreneurship that you don't have when you have a full-time job.
Right.
My insurance was, I was paying, I think, $150, $200 a month, something like that, for my family, for the three of us through my old employer. Now it's $1,000 something a month. So, way higher.
Yeah. It's definitely a lot higher.
I make enough money. I don't get the Obamacare subsidy. So gotcha. Personally, it doesn't bother me. I can afford it. I make $120,000 a year. I can pay for health insurance. But it's an important thing for any family. This is meant to be a health insurance podcast, but if you get really sick and you don't have insurance, it could cost you a heck of a lot more than $120,000 I make in a year. Mm-hmm. So it's worth that little bit to protect ourselves and our families and our finances. But back to the revenue side, about 90% of it comes from that freelance writing. But I wouldn't have that without the blog. Mm-hmm. When I started the blog, I didn't realize at the time I was writing my new resume, essentially, because people, in the corporate world, when people are hiring, it's all about, what degree you have, especially earlier in your career, what was your GPA of the last time you went to school? I worked really hard in grad school to have a great final GPA, but, it's like, that's the stuff people care about, is like that piece of paper that you worked years for that says that you can earn more money than other people. Mm-hmm. On the internet, none of that really matters. Credentials are nice. I include that I have an MBA on my bios and things like that, because it makes me a little more credible. But really, people don't hire me because of that. They hire me because of the product I create. As long as I'm consistently putting out a very high quality product that's better than what anyone else is doing, or at least as good as the best, mm-hmm. Or the best tier, I'll keep getting hired back and can keep getting great rates, which is a big part of how my income grew. It didn't just grow because I was doing more. It grew because I was finding clients that better valued the service I was providing and were willing to pay more for it.
Mm-hmm. With those, were you reaching out to them, or were they coming to you because of what you were putting out on your blog and podcast?
A combination. I'd say about 70%-ish can happen because of something at a conference. So FinCon being, for me, number one. I'd meet companies. There are freelancer marketplaces. There's a guy named Jason Steele. He's an awesome personal finance freelance writer and a good friend of mine. He runs the freelance marketplace at FinCon. So how that works is there'll be, maybe 3-4 dozen companies there all looking to hire people. And the people who want to be hired for this kind of work go there and connect. Kind of like duh in your head, but when you're meeting people in person, face to face, who are looking for exactly what you offer, it's a lot easier than going to some website like the ProBlogger job board, or there's a bunch of sites online to find writing gigs, Craigslist, if you dare to venture that way. And I do know friends who've found some awesome gigs on Craigslist, so I don't want to bash it. You never know where you're going to find an awesome job.
Yeah, exactly. I found I ended up working for Al Pacino because of a Craigslist ad. Like I designed.
That is awesome. I'd love to hear that story.
I designed. So I'll do it real quick. It's so weird that I found it on Craigslist, but I was my second year of grad school, and I just found this random post on Craigslist about it. It was very vague. It sounded very spammy. It was like A-list actor looking for designer to help with movie. And I was like, yeah, whatever, I'll just reply to this just because I need something to do in the summer. And it was like 6 or 7 emails. I ended up going, before I kind of figured out that it actually was legit. And they were really interested in actually why I got hired was because the summer beforehand I was an assistant designer on the opera Salome at Santa Fe Opera. And I didn't find out until the day before, but it turns out Al Pacino was making this film called Wild Salome, where he had filmed himself playing King Herod in L.A., and then he wanted to do this beforehand, where he would walk the streets of New York trying to figure out the story behind Salome, and he was interviewing the grandson of the writer. So I was hired to dress up. To dress him up, basically, and then dress up an actor to play Oscar Wilde so that he could have a conversation with Oscar Wilde. And then Oscar Wilde's nephew was there just playing Oscar Wilde's nephew. So it was this surreal experience where I'm sitting there with the director, actually the cameraman and the main producer, and we're drinking at the bar watching Al Pacino have a conversation with an actor who dresses up like Oscar Wilde. But yeah,
that is an awesome story.
Yeah, Craigslist. That was again. I have never found an equally interesting design gig on Craigslist since then. They were all mostly terrible, but you're right. You get every once in a while you get something cool that happens on Craigslist.
Look, I haven't looked at the ProBlogger job board seriously as a source of clients for a while. I did earlier on when I was a newer writer. That was definitely a big place for me to go. One of actually my longest client I still have right now came from the ProBlogger job board. It was just this random thing, this website about real estate looking to hire people and it said, here's the rates we pay. I'm like, oh, that's the rate I'm charging, which I actually charge a heck of a lot more now. And I've only raised the rate on them a little because they're such a long time client and they're so easy to work with. That's a big part of it if you want to go the freelance route in any profession. If it's online, the biggest ones are going to be writing, web design, app design, graphics, things like that. There's the clients who will pay you more but are a huge pain in the ass to work with. And there are the clients that will pay you less, but they're so easy to work with. Sometimes it's worth taking a little less just because you know what your time's worth and what it's going to take to put that project or that article together. Where there's some clients, I had one client who I would never say by name, but a big company that is in a finance industry you've all probably heard of at some point on an ad somewhere. And I was writing with that for them, and it was just so difficult to work with, even though they were paying me the best rate I ever had. I said, it's not worth this to get paid that because it's so stressful and so time consuming. I was actually I remember when I brought them on, the whole situation was kind of stressful. I was actually in London because I had just quit my job and wanted to celebrate being able to work anywhere in the world by doing that. And anywhere for me that I picked was London, one of my favorite cities. So I was in London and got this email about this client, and they came through a network that I get a bunch of clients through that are usually the bigger corporate clients that typically pay more. So I'm usually happy to drop anything for those. And this was one of those. And I even went to the library in London. I found a library where I could print off the contract, sign it, and scan it back in and send it over.